Hey there, welcome. I am so incredibly glad you're here today. We're going to dive into a really important, deeply empathetic explainer that explores the hidden, lived realities of depression. This is all based directly on the clinical insights of psychiatrist and sleep specialist Dr. Atsumi. So let's jump right in and unpack what's actually happening beneath the surface of this incredibly complex illness.
What does it actually feel like when someone develops depression? I want you to really let that question sink in for a second. It's so easy to just look at clinical definitions from the outside. But what is the subjective, intensely personal experience of this illness? We often think we know exactly what depression looks like. We picture someone feeling sad or just a bit tired. But the truth? The reality is so much more overwhelming and honestly almost entirely invisible to anyone who isn't actively going through it. To truly wrap our heads around that subjective experience, we are going to walk through 5 deeply surprising physical and emotional realities detailed by Dr. Atsumi. And look, this explainer absolutely isn't about judging, and it isn't just reciting a dry list of medical symptoms. It's about validation. It's about stepping directly into someone else's shoes and understanding exactly how depression radically alters the way they interact with their entire world. All right, let's get into our first major reality, the invisible loss of passion. At its very core, depression silently drains away the fundamental energy you need just to exist. And this leads to a highly specific clinical symptom called anhedonia. Basically, this is the documented medical loss of your ability to feel pleasure or interest in the things you previously loved. This is absolutely crucial to understand. If someone suddenly stops caring about playing soccer or camping or watching their favorite anime, it is not a personal failure. They aren't just being lazy or flaking out on you. It is a legitimate medical symptom, where the actual capacity for joy is just gone.
That brings us right to our second surprising truth, when those likes disappear, and passion actively turns into a nuisance.
Dr. Atsumi points out something really startling about this. When those likes disappear, it isn't just a quiet, peaceful fading of interest. It's a drastic shift. Before depression, your hobbies restore your energy, right? They act like fuel, giving you a sense of purpose. But during an acute depressive episode, those exact same beloved hobbies actively drain your energy. Even worse, they start to feel deeply irritating, like a massive burden or a chore. So the huge takeaway here is this. We should absolutely never force someone to just try harder at their hobbies during the acute phase of their depression. Pushing them to do what they used to love only depletes their already severely limited energy. It can worsen their symptoms and literally make them resent the hobby entirely. The best thing we can do is just wait until their energy naturally returns.
Now, this severe energy drain extends way beyond just our hobbies, which leads us to reality number 3, mornings, daily limits, and the crushing physical toll of depression.
Waking up, opening the curtains, brushing your teeth, maybe picking up a stray sock off the floor. For most of us, these are just automatic pilot steps. We don't even think about them. But depression causes a phenomenon known clinically as psychomotor retardation. This means your mind and your body literally slow down. For someone experiencing this, every single one of these tiny steps feels like grueling, backbreaking manual labor. The simple, everyday act of just pulling back the curtains can feel physically impossible, like you're trying to move boulders.
And even if they do manage to somehow muster the physical strength to do it, the result isn't a sense of relief. Any incoming light or sound can literally become agony. Imagine gathering all your willpower to finally open those curtains, only to have the light and the noise of the outside world cause you genuine physical and mental pain. Dr. Atsumi notes that a lot of patients will just immediately slam those curtains shut and retreat into a pitch-black room for the rest of the day. And the tragic part? They then fall into this intense self-loathing, thinking, wow, I can't even open a curtain. We desperately need to flip that narrative. Realizing that even these incredibly tiny actions are monumental achievements is actually where recovery starts.
This daily battle follows a really brutal cycle, known in medicine as diurnal variation. Waking up in the morning is almost always characterized by this crushing despair, a feeling that your body is made of lead, and intrusive thoughts that it would just be better not to be alive. By the afternoon, things might feel slightly better. And by night, surprisingly, a patient might actually feel well enough to hum a tune, thinking, hey, maybe tomorrow will be okay. But the tragic hallmark of this illness is that the very next morning they are thrown right back into that exact same hell. Though Dr. Atsumi points out a silver lining. If a patient can sleep a bit and wake up actually feeling like today might be manageable, that is an incredibly strong sign of real recovery.
Which brings us to reality number 4, the intense fear of smartphones. It's a highly modern symptom, but a huge one.
It is honestly startling how something so completely normal in our daily lives becomes a profound source of terror. Dr. Atsumi notes that while anxiety isn't technically in the official diagnostic criteria for depression, it heavily dictates just how tough the illness is to treat. Every single ding, buzz, or flash of a notification triggers intense anxiety. Casual direct messages feel impossibly burdensome. And because the depressed mind is completely steeped in guilt, totally innocent texts are misread as blame or attacks. It just completely paralyzes the person. They leave messages unread because they literally cannot handle replying, which then just fuels massive self-hatred, trapping them in this downward spiral of isolation.
Okay, let's take a collective breath and step back from the depths of that despair. This brings us to our fifth and final reality, the critical turning point of recovery. Just being alive is great.
But right before we can fully appreciate that sense of hope, we have to gently acknowledge a really dark truth. Depression is an illness that actively tricks the brain. It completely warps your perception until you are utterly convinced that death is the correct answer, totally stripping away all sense of meaning in life. Recognizing this relentless, invisible internal battle is so crucial, because it frames exactly how monumental mere survival truly is.
Because of this, Dr. Atsumi emphasizes a profoundly important message. When your own brain is relentlessly attacking you, telling you that you shouldn't be here, the simple act of enduring, of just continuing to exist despite the pain, is a massive victory. It is an incredible, highly commendable achievement. Just being alive is great. If a patient can begin to loosely accept this idea, that simply existing is absolutely enough, it's often the very first giant step toward true recovery.
Dr. Atsumi closes his insights with this deeply human piece of validation. Thank you so much, just for being alive. As supporters, as family members, friends, or medical professionals, this is the message we have to continuously, repeatedly communicate. We have to remind those who are struggling that they are needed, and that surviving just one more day is something to be profoundly proud of. I really want this to resonate deeply with anyone joining me today who might be struggling right now, or who is currently supporting a loved one through this darkness. You are doing enough simply by being here.
So, what does all this mean? It leads us to our final thought. How can recognizing these invisible struggles completely change the way we support ourselves and those we love? When we finally understand that the inability to open a curtain isn't laziness, that avoiding a beloved hobby isn't a character flaw, and that fearing a simple text message is a very real medical symptom, how does our empathy shift? I want you to carry this new structured understanding forward with you. Let it inspire you to offer far more compassionate patient mental health support in your everyday life. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. Take care of yourselves and remember to keep learning.